This is Brian Cook and Kendra Cox with DiscoverWoodward.com, and we're also with Keller Williams Realty Elite, and we're here today to interview Steve Purviance, and lots of value in Northwest Oklahoma right here and experience, and so we're going to talk to him today about everything he offers.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks so much for joining us. We're excited to talk to you about this.
Well, I'm glad to have the opportunity, guys. Thank you.
This is definitely, you don't take a lot of time to do anything fun, really. I mean, you work and you call it fun.
I like it.
It makes us all believe it's work.
Yes.
I know, he does, but really work is fun. And I'm certainly no hunter at all, but I mean, you've got the coolest trophies all over this room. So you've obviously hunted everywhere and anywhere all over the U.S.
Right.
But you have, are you a Northwest Oklahoma guy?
Oh, yeah. I grew up in Morrill.
Awesome. So then you came back. So tell us a little bit about that. Tell us about why you came back to Woodward.
Well, I mean, you know, like a lot of us here, we went to Northwestern. I went to Northwestern and graduated up there. And right out of college, I went to Alaska. I had the opportunity to commercial salmon fish up there. And, well, back in the time, a guy out of college could make enough money in 3 months to come home and just hunt all year. You know, and that's what I did. But
that's a brilliant plan.
It's just like anything, farming or cattle. After a while, the market may not be what it used to be.
Sure.
And about year 4, I couldn't do that anymore. And I came back and did odd things like taxidermy and then started this outfitting business in '98, which was Mount Hyde Outfitters. I still do it to an extent. We'll still offer a few hunts every year. Whenever we were running it full time, I was probably doing 120 hunts in several states. Probably do just 30 or 40 now in just Oklahoma. And it's mainly because Oklahoma has just been one of the best states there is around for hunting. And that's one of the reasons I'm now not just doing the outfitting, I'm still on land in this part of the country where I grew up.
So tell us a little bit, let's talk about hunting first, and then I want to come back and talk a little bit more about land.
Okay.
So tell us, there's so many different types of hunting, and so I mean, I know enough about that. My uncle, whenever we moved to Northwest Oklahoma, would be like, hey kid, when are you going to get me somebody to turkey hunt? Yeah. So tell us a little bit about the different types of hunting and what draws people, I mean, what draws my uncle from the eastern part of the state, where I think is beautiful, to Woodward. Why?
Yeah. Well, predominantly, you know, eastern Oklahoma has great hunting as well. Now, it doesn't have maybe the same quality of deer. We have kind of a different deer than they do out there. It's a bigger antler, bigger body deer, and a lot of it's influenced by Kansas, right? We're up here against the northern tier of the state, against the Kansas border. This country also has phenomenal wild turkey hunting, Rio Grande turkey hunting, and you know, a lot of hunters that come from all over the U.S. are after the 4 different subspecies the United States has, and Rio's is one of them, and we're one of the best areas in the United States for Rio Grande turkey hunting. So deer and turkey are the main draws. On a good year, quail hunting is fantastic, and for many decades, people came here and they were flooding here from all over the U.S. to quail hunt, but now it seems so cyclic, and the bird numbers are either great or poor.
What makes a good year? I mean, is that something to do with our rain and things like that?
It is, mostly rainfall. And it just depends on so many factors when it comes to a quail. It seems like everything wants to kill a quail. But rainfall's the biggest factor on having a good year or not.
So if you've had, I don't know what the hunting seasons are, how do you know when it's going to be a good quail year? Do you just know when it happens?
You really don't. I mean, this time of year you start to see a lot of young birds. This is the kind of the year they hatch, and quail can have 2 or 3 different nests. So they can raise quite a bit. So, you know, right now things are looking good, but I've seen it in many years that it looks good right now, and then by the time quail season gets here, they're not around. So it just depends. The turkeys and deer are more reliable.
If I focus on quail then, so are you scouting right now to determine if you're going to do quail hunts on that quail season? When is quail season?
Well, no. People bird hunters are a little different than the deer and the turkey hunters, because the deer and the turkey hunters, they come out here basically, you know, they're after big birds or they're after a big old buck. Quail hunters just love to see their dogs work, right?
Gotcha.
For the most part.
Okay.
They want to have some action, they want to shoot some birds, but most of the time bird hunters come out here and they watch their dogs work, and they may not even shoot. They may get up a covey of less than 10 birds, they won't shoot one. They just want to see their dogs work. So it's a little different. Now, if we have a good banner year of quail and they're getting into 15 or 20 bird coveys, they're going to try to kill the limit, but a lot of times they don't.
I see. Okay, so trophies are obviously the thing, and I kind of like turkey are funny. They're a funny group of animals.
Oh,
What they are. So we'll have this turkey. I don't know, what do you call a group of turkeys? A flock. Okay, so there's this flock of turkey in my neighborhood because I live across from the walking trails. They're funny animals, and Some of them look really huge to me. So tell me a little bit about what a trophy turkey looks like. And you obviously, you know where to find them.
Right. Well, so you've got your young of the year, which is your, they're less than 1 year old, which is your jakes. You know, people aren't necessarily after hens, they're after the toms.
Sure.
Well, the jakes are 1 year old birds. And really what's kind of nice about turkey hunting is it only takes 2 years to be considered a trophy, and that'd be a long beard. And if you've seen them at your house, you've probably seen some that have beards hanging down, and you probably see some that just have a little bitty
Right.
sticking out. And most people are going to wait for those bigger toms.
I see. And then deer.
Mhm.
So that's the big one here.
Well, it's hard. So it's really hard anywhere you go to get deer to a mature age class, and that's going to be at least 4 years old, preferably 5 plus. And most wild deer don't live much past 8 or 9,
Is that
maybe
right?
10. Yeah. So whenever I had started Mount Hyde Outfitters, just the public, the locals, and people coming in, they were shooting young deer, 1 or 2 year old deer, and you just can't do that if you're ever going to get to that trophy size. Well, overall, the area here and other states around, people, hunters in general, that are chasing trophy deer are typically waiting out. They're doing a better job waiting until they get to be mature, and that's what it takes. Once they get mature, we've got a genetic in this country of the whitetail racks that are just above average. We've got, the company I work for now, the real estate company sells land all over in some of the most considered premier counties for trophy whitetail in the country: Iowa, Missouri, Illinois, Kansas. We have deer that will rival that, but it's kind of a sleeper. People just don't realize.
That's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I was raised in Harp County, and so
Okay.
they've got some
That's one of the best places.
ever. Yeah. I was on the tractor one time, stopped. I think I counted 160 or 70.
Oh my goodness.
But that's cyclic too, isn't it?
That was
I remember Boiling Springs being like that.
94, 95.
When
Yes.
in the late 90s, early 2000s, we had our deer herd had reached carrying capacity. I mean, it was as good as it's ever been in the history of our deer herd.
Yeah.
But whenever we reached the drought we had in 11 and 12,
Yes.
we had great, from 2000 to about 2010, it was just fantastic.
Yeah.
And then that drought, a lot of people thought they died. They didn't die. The fawns were born, but the does couldn't support them, and they had to kick them off land. They couldn't live. So we missed an entire year of fawn crops, and then the next year we missed nearly the full year again. So that's why our deer numbers aren't quite what they were back then. They were better then than they are now. It's slowly getting back there.
Yep. It was amazing how many deer there were.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember seeing big ones. I don't remember seeing, there's some muley deer that were big, but I never remember seeing very many big whitetails.
Yeah.
But I saw.
So has
lots of-
population
Yeah.
has population helped to increase the trophy deer size in Northwest Oklahoma?
Well, I tell you since I guess it could kind of be like a reset whenever we lost those 2 years of fawn crops. So that's basically 2 full years of replenishing our deer herd that we missed out on, and it was considerable. So we went from having a set number to having less than 50% of that amount just in 2 years. But it was, one of there's management practices as far as deer go, as far as taking your does. You want an even buck-doe ratio, right? You want as many bucks as does, or awful close to that, and it had got pretty askew at that time. And it seems to me like since this drought that things have kind of got back to normal. That maybe that buck-doe ratio was better, and going to the trophy size. We're having as good a years right now over the last 2 or 3 years as far as top-end racks, score-wise, than we've ever had. So yeah, I think it has. I think it's helped a lot.
Yeah.
All right, you ready to talk about real
You
estate? Okay, so you are a land specialist. I consider us more residential
Yes.
specialists. And you also are really great at commercial. We know that's not my favorite game, but I can do your work for you because you know what you're doing. But land it's a totally different ballgame. So tell us about Whitetail Properties. Tell us a little bit about what you do.
Well, so the real estate business was kind of something that came from the outfitting business. After a while, you get a reputation. We kind of got a reputation for getting bigger deer for our clients, right? And Whitetail Properties was really created by people that loved deer hunting up in Illinois years ago. And they had offered me the opportunity to sign on with them. I had got my real estate license not knowing what I was going to do, and then it was kind of good timing. They had got a hold of me, and so I was the first agent in Oklahoma for them. But yeah, we specialize in land. It's like you guys, you sell land.
Yes.
But you're specialized in homes probably more,
Yes.
maybe
Yes,
homes more properties.
absolutely.
And then I would be vice versa. I sell a lot of houses, but I'm mainly selling.
Right.
So that's how that got started.
Right. So what areas do you cover with your land? Where all do you go?
My territory, so we've got several territories. I think there's 6 agents in the state, and mine would go out to the end of the Panhandle. It would go basically to I-40 down there. I don't have Beckham County, but I have Roger Mills and Dewey and Custer, and then it goes out to Grant County. So I've got about 14 counties in my territory.
So how many land transactions do you do annually?
Man, I don't know.
We look at it, because this is why I ask. We look at this, and how many people do you help every year?
Yeah, that's a
And
great
it's a little
question.
bit
I don't
different.
guess I've added them up. I would say I probably do 25 or 30, something
Okay.
like that.
And that's a big deal because in some ways land is easy in the respect of you don't have home inspections. Oh my
Oh
goodness.
yeah, compared to
You don't have to fight roofs.
You're exactly right.
But in
I'm
other
fortunate
ways,
that way.
land is, I mean, it's kind of a monster
Mhm.
with some of the other things that you deal with rider rights, and I'm sure now with even some wind rights and some
Right.
things like that that you have going on. So, I mean, I see land as being, that's probably why it's intimidating to me.
Oh, is it? Okay,
In some
well,
respects, yes.
you know, it's funny, I kind of feel that way
It's
about
not because I
residential.
can't drive.
You know? But yeah, you do. You've got mineral rights, you know, which typically people won't sell
No,
anyway.
no, they're very difficult.
And a lot of what we do, we turn it over to the closing agent, and they take care of a lot of that type of thing. But as far as wind rights go, you know, you've got a lot of the land we sell will also have maybe a hunting lodge or a cabin or a house that they use for
Right.
that. And so we do deal with it some, but to a much lesser extent. I mean, nothing like you guys do. And to me, the land is easier than dealing with the other. I mean, it really is.
Yes.
It goes back to knowledge base.
Yes, knowledge
I mean,
base, yeah. We showed some, I mean, it seems like when I get a piece of land listed, and then it's like a whole day. Like somebody says, hey, I want to meet you out there and show you the land. You just have to take the day out.
It's the whole
I just
day.
don't
It's
think
the
that
whole
we have
day.
the kind of energy spans for that. Like,
And I'm just like,
attention.
Yeah.
I can show like 14 houses in a day.
Yeah.
Instead
And
of
that's
one.
exciting.
Especially whenever there's 2 or 3 tracks you want to sell, they better understand, you know,
Yeah.
a particular ranch will take several hours just to
Oh,
show
Sure.
them.
Yes. So yeah, it's definitely a different game.
It is totally a different ballgame. So we're members of the National Association of Realtors, and we have some we've got a code of ethics and some strict
Sure.
things, and of course we're licensed with the Oklahoma Real Estate Commission. And you are too. You
That's
also
right.
have that same professional standard and same professional skill, or something at least very similar. So you're licensed here in the state of Oklahoma.
Right?
So you have an associate license with the Oklahoma Real Estate
That's
Commission,
right.
and then you broker with a broker out of a different state who holds a brokerage license here in Oklahoma.
Right.
So I think that's important to remember too, because sometimes whenever we see land versus residential, I think people get confused and they think that you're different, but you're not.
No,
You're
we're
awesome.
the same.
Yeah,
We
you
can,
are.
we
Real
can
estate
sell either
professional.
or. Just you
Yes.
mentioned commercial earlier, same thing. I don't ever deal with it, it seems.
No, you probably shouldn't.
I
I'm just
could.
kidding. No, you stick with land. We'll take care of the other.
That sounds good.
I'm teasing. You do you. So a lot of times we do what we do because somebody influenced us. So what
Right.
makes you do what you do?
Well, I had mentioned it earlier, you know, my granddad was game warden here for 32 years. And, you know, his old shotgun sitting over there, his old service revolver is still over there. And that's, along with my dad and my uncle, and of course I've hunted with family over my whole life. But that's what got me into it, and I loved it as a little boy. I mean, you know, my earliest memories were hunting with them. And then, of course, my granddad, you know, one of the cool things about kind of his legacy is he was the one that reintroduced our turkeys back to Northwest Oklahoma.
Oh, really?
He personally went and done it. And actually, there's a plaque right there that was given to him by the National Wild Turkey Federation that says Arnold the Smuggler Purviance. Because he went, the game department wouldn't fund him. He knew he could put the turkeys back in our state, but they wouldn't fund him. So he did it on his own dime. And he went out to the Texas Panhandle. The game department would send him prairie chickens or crappie and bass to release. He would just take them on out to the Texas Panhandle and trade those ranchers, those animals, for their turkeys, and he would trap them himself. And he had a flock established in Northwest Oklahoma before the game department ever knew and ever funded him to do it. And then after a few years, they did start funding him, and he started putting, you know, what he would do is he'd put 3 hens and a tom out, and people that he could trust's property, and a lot of them just roost right on the house or on their barn. And that's how these turkeys got back because of him.
That
back
is
in
a cool
the
story.
50s.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
How neat. And so you're extending that on with your own family.
That's right, yeah, so we get to enjoy what he did, you know. Right here's Boiling Spring State Park, you know. That's where his first animals went. He also released a deer. Now, he didn't trap them. Cy Curtis trapped those in southeast Oklahoma and reintroduced them here. My granddad helped him build the traps for the deer. Cy was having a lot of the deer break their necks. Whenever they would get trapped, they'd flip out. So Grandpa made a way that the traps were going to total darkness. And after he built the traps, he told Cy, I just want your first deer to be trapped. So the first deer released in Oklahoma went out here too, and he released them right there in Boiling Spring.
Well, that's really
He
cool.
said that he also released a mule deer. He doesn't know anything.
So there wasn't mule deer?
There was nothing. He said the mule deer ended up at Laverne.
Yeah.
From here, he said he released everything in the park and then went to Laverne. And then he'd start releasing them in several big ranches around here after that.
Yeah.
That's
So
really
anyway, it's pretty
neat.
cool.
That is
That's
cool.
super neat.
Yeah.
So,
I didn't think about that. I just assumed they were always here.
The settlers shot them out, you know, and they did it a lot. They did in the mountains and elk and everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
sure.
So what time, so there's been some elk and other non-deer species found in like Freedom. Do we have any more elk in here very often?
There's an occasional elk that'll show up. I've even had one here
Really?
show up. A cow for several years will show up occasionally. There's a small herd in Dewey County by a little town called Webb.
Oh, yeah.
You know where Webb's at. And to be honest, it's a small herd, but for that area, it's pretty big, and there's some pretty giant bulls come out of it. The state record was just killed there a couple of years ago.
Really?
Giant bull. So yeah, we've got a few elk every
So we
once in
have
a
an
while.
elk season.
We've got an elk season.
I had no idea.
They just introduced that, and it may have been longer than this, but it seems like maybe 5 years ago. Now, they only allow in a big county area here, I think it's only one bull and maybe 2 cows, and it's a quota to where usually that bull is killed the first hour of daylight by somebody, and they've got to call in, and hey, the season's closed immediately, so usually it doesn't last. But the Panhandle also has a season, and you kill several of them out there. You can. I know that Rusty Menifee, which would be our new ranger here, our new game ranger, he just came from Cimarron County, and I know he had showed me some pictures a couple of years ago of his 2 boys had killed a couple bulls out there in Cimarron County where he was ranger. So, anyways, it's pretty neat to have that.
It is neat.
It is. And I heard there was a black bear.
That's right. There was a black bear out there. Eastern part of the state's had bears
Yeah.
forever.
Yeah.
Not a lot, but they have always had.
Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, there was a bear too that they got out there in Cimarron County.
Oh, interesting.
That is neat.
Eastern part of the state has bear season.
Oh, yeah.
Would we have bear season here?
No, we don't. We
I
just
would
don't
think
have
so.
it.
I mean, it makes sense we don't have them.
Right.
Right.
But if there's one, that means that eventually there would be more. Is that where you're going with that?
No, I would just be curious to know if there was truly a bear out there, because he would have him a long, long way.
Yeah,
Now, mountain lion will cover a lot of country. Wolf will cover a lot of country.
So I've never seen a wolf around.
Well, there's not supposed to be. There's some rumors and some things that I've seen and heard about that I wonder if maybe there wasn't a wolf or two around here at a time or two. I know for sure I've never seen one personally, mountain lion. You hear a lot of people say they have. I've never seen one personally, but I do feel that there's been mountain lion. Well, my wife, it was kind of neat. So a couple of years ago, Stacy likes to walk down below here, and she told me she saw a mountain lion, right? So I hear that a lot. So anyway, she tried to describe it, and I went down there, and what was bad is I had a trail camera within 10 foot of where that mountain lion, he was chasing a fawn. And where he stopped to see Stacy, and then he just slithered off in the trees. And if he went 10 more foot, I got him on camera. So I go down there and I measure I find his tracks. Now, they were in sand. I couldn't see a nice, uniform, beautiful track to confirm it, but they were long stripes. I mean, the cat did have long stripes. So in my mind, I'm like, oh, I think she might have saw a mountain lion. And then later in the year, we went over here to the park. I don't know if we had a picnic or a birthday or something, and there was a pamphlet at the bathroom that said, be aware there's been a young mountain lion spotted in the park. So that was it right there. She saw it.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Isn't that neat?
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'm sure I've seen one driving
There's some.
across the road whenever I was in college, driving back and forth because I lived out at Clear Lake.
Oh,
I drove to
yeah.
Northwestern, and just outside of Laverne on Highway 64. I'm sure I saw one.
Yeah.
I'm sure because the tail. What else could have that tail?
Oh, no, if you
Nothing
saw
else.
the tail.
It had to have been. But then I thought, oh my gosh, am I sleeping? I'm not supposed to sleep and drive. That was a lot of
I would
driving.
like to. I would love to see what I've seen things that might have been a mountain lion, but I've never been able to convince myself it was. But one of these days,
Man, that's cool stuff.
For the amount of hunting you've done, I'm shocked.
I know.
I know.
Grandpa said the same thing. He said, you know, of course, he's been out and about he had been his whole life, he had never seen one.
Oh, maybe I am crazy.
No,
We'll confirm
One more
that.
thing.
and it's always the people.
Little more evidence.
It's somebody that doesn't hunt, and that's who typically sees it seems like, and it's just the way it is.
It's fun. Man, we appreciate the heck out of you taking
Oh,
your time.
yeah.
We know that you're
This has
really
been
busy.
fun.
Yes.
But we just wanted to share a little bit about what you do. We think it's
Yeah.
really cool that you have this. I mean, and you've got a beautiful location out here.
Thank you.
Yes.
So thank you so much for
Yes.
spending some
You
time with
bet.
us.
If they want to get a hold of you, what's the best way to see the show? If they've got questions about specialty land,
Yeah.
about hunting, any of that good stuff.
Well, my email address would be Steve.Purviance at whitetailproperties.com, but my phone number is probably the best, and that would be 580-571-7305.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.